I made the heart-wrenching decision to end my marriage of 10 years after uncovering some distressing information that completely transformed my life. At 37 years old, I had been married to Dove, my college sweetheart, for a decade, and together we had shared 16 wonderful years, having dated for 6 years before deciding to tie the knot. Dove, a 37-year-old woman I met during our college days and always regarded as my soulmate, had been the cornerstone of my life ever since we first connected. Just a month ago, Dove attended her friend's grand wedding in Las Vegas, a truly fairy tale event that spanned an entire week. Although I received an invitation, I had to decline due to urgent work commitments, missing out on what I knew would have been an unforgettable celebration. Upon Dove's return from the wedding, I noticed she was unusually quiet and withdrawn. Initially, I assumed she was simply exhausted from the week-long festivities, so I decided to give her the space she needed to relax and unwind. However, as days passed, her behavior began to shift in ways that deeply troubled me. Dove became increasingly distant and irritable, often ignoring me and reacting with annoyance during our conversations. Our once lively and affectionate intimacy dwindled to almost nothing. Whenever I tried to initiate any form of closeness, she would snap at me, insisting she wasn't in the mood. This coldness persisted for nearly a month since her return, leaving our relationship strained and devoid of the warmth it once had. The situation took a more troubling turn yesterday when I stumbled upon a hospital bill in Dove's purse. It was for an STD test that she had taken the day after coming back from the wedding, with the report expected to arrive a week later. This discovery raised immediate red flags for me. Why would she get tested without informing me? My love for her is unwavering, but such a significant finding couldn't be ignored. I hadn't yet confronted her about the bill because I wanted to gather all the necessary information about STD testing to ensure I wasn't acting on incomplete knowledge. In my quest for answers, I came across a website where many people shared similar experiences of discovering their partners had taken STD tests secretly, often linked to infidelity. This resonated with my situation, prompting me to share my story here and seek advice on whether my suspicions were justified. Admitting this is difficult, but I also took a peek into Dove's phone a few days ago, going through her messages and call logs. To my surprise, everything appeared clean, no suspicious contacts or conversations. I even checked her social media accounts, which were equally spotless. This left me conflicted. Should I feel guilty for doubting her, or was I justified in being cautious? I considered reaching out to her friends, who attended the wedding, to see if anything out of the ordinary had occurred. But since it was her school friends getting married and not our college friends, I didn't have the close connections necessary to inquire without her knowledge. This entire situation feels surreal because, in the 10 years we've been together, Dove has always been transparent, never giving me any reason to suspect her. To add more context, the hospital bill showed that Dove made the STD test appointment the day after returning from the trip, but the test was conducted just yesterday, with a report to be released in a week. Her behavior had been concerning from the moment she came back, and while I had initially checked her phone without finding anything, yesterday, when Dove came home after the test, she seemed particularly tense and exhausted. It was suspicious how she carefully placed her bag into the wardrobe, a departure from her usual habit of leaving it on the table or couch. Although I pretended not to notice, I kept a close watch on her every move. When she went to the bathroom for a shower, I decided to inspect her purse again and found the STD test bill, which only heightened my anxiety. Update 1 asterisk. After reading the comments on my initial post, I realized I hadn't provided any background information about myself or Dove, thinking it wasn't relevant. However, to clarify, Dove and I both graduated from the same college, work as software engineers at different IT companies, and we have a 6-year-old son. Our financial situation was stable, and we led a reasonably happy family life until Dove's recent actions shook everything. The hospital bill indicating her STD test led me to restless nights, as the stories of others suggested Dove might have been unfaithful. Initially, I wanted to wait for the test results before addressing the issue, but my anxiety got the better of me, and I could no longer contain my feelings. Dove even noticed a change in my behavior and asked if everything was alright, to which I simply nodded and smiled, not wanting her to think I was retaliating for her distant demeanor. The day after I shared my concerns online, during dinner, Dove again inquired about my well-being. Despite my attempts to remain calm, I couldn't hold back any longer and directly asked her about the STD test. Her shocked reaction made it clear something was wrong. When I pressed further, she became pale and struggled to explain herself. Eventually, Dove broke down in tears, holding my hand and pleading for me to believe her. I told her I could only believe her if she was truthful, but instead of clarifying, she pulled closer, leaned on my shoulder, and cried harder. Throughout our 16-year relationship, I had always been there for her in moments of distress, but this time, I remained emotionally distant. Eventually, Dove confessed everything. She revealed that during her friend's bachelor trip to Las Vegas, part of the week-long wedding festivities, the event manager had organized various activities involving escorts and other services. While the bride and her friends indulged in these experiences, Dove resisted her friends' attempts to persuade her to join in. However, peer pressure eventually got the better of her when her friends encouraged her to receive an intimate massage, which she initially thought wouldn't constitute cheating. Unfortunately, the massage turned out to be with an escort who pressured her into undressing, and one thing led to another, resulting in her infidelity. Furthermore, her friends encouraged her to continue exploring these fantasies, assuring her that it would remain confidential. Dove felt compelled to continue despite her initial resistance, believing that one instance of cheating didn't warrant further betrayal. Hearing Dove's confession was devastating. The woman I loved dearly had betrayed me, and the pain was unbearable. Dove tried to comfort me, but I remained unmoved, eventually telling her I intended to file for divorce. Shocked and pleading with me not to make a hasty decision, I dismissed her concerns, asserting that if she truly cared about our family, she wouldn't have betrayed us. I left the house, heading to my friend's place, where I spent the night drinking until I passed out. The next morning, after calling in sick to work, I searched for divorce lawyers and connected with one who was a junior from my school. Understanding the urgency, he offered to meet me sooner, and we decided to discuss my situation over drinks. Despite Dove's initial confession the previous evening, my lawyer advised me to take time to let my emotions settle before making a final decision. However, I was resolute in my intention to divorce, valuing my self-respect over our love. The following afternoon, Dove returned home looking miserable. She attempted to reconcile, expressing remorse and trying to reconnect, but I remained firm in my decision. I began packing my belongings, preparing to leave her house, and drove to a hotel before heading to my parents' home to be with my son. During this period, Dove made numerous attempts to contact me, calling, texting, leaving voicemails, showing up at my workplace, and even crashing at my friend's place. A mutual friend informed me that Dove had been searching the entire city for me, but she hadn't revealed the true reason behind her actions. As I awaited the arrival of the divorce papers, I continued to stay at my parents' house, hoping to maintain some semblance of normalcy for my son. Update 2*10 days after deciding to divorce, the divorce papers finally arrived on a Saturday morning. When I went back to Dove's house, she was lying lifelessly on the couch while our son played nearby. He ran to me, hugging me tightly after not seeing me for a week. Dove, however, remained distant, giving me a cold stare instead of embracing me. After a few minutes of playing with our son, I sat down, and Dove approached me, asking what I wanted. I simply smirked, and she inquired if there was anything she could do to make things right. After some contemplation, I told her that she needed to admit her infidelity in front of our parents. Initially reluctant, Dove eventually agreed, understanding that this was necessary for closure. That evening, after everyone had gathered, Dove confessed her cheating to both our parents, explaining that it had happened during her friend's wedding festivities. She emphasized that it didn't mean anything, and that she still loved me deeply. My parents were visibly disappointed, but they remained silent, while Dove's parents looked embarrassed and angry. In response, I presented the divorce papers, outlining the terms that included her and our son living in the house while I moved out, along with joint custody and my financial support for our child. Dove reluctantly signed the papers, and her parents promptly left without saying a word. My own parents offered me a place to stay, which I accepted. After leaving the house, Dove locked herself in our son's room, leaving me to move out without being able to pack anything else. I wanted to see my son, but Dove's actions prevented that, leaving me feeling both humiliated and heartbroken. Approximately 45 days later, we appeared in court to finalize the divorce amicably. Neither of us contested the proceedings, and we parted ways without any further confrontation. Since the divorce was finalized, I've been busy finding a new home and settling in. Although I might encounter Dove occasionally because of our son, our interactions will be purely transactional. Despite moving forward, I still feel a profound sense of emptiness and frustration, knowing that I also hurt Dove in the process. Perhaps, in the end, we both received what we deserved. Story 2 *. I found myself compelled to divorce my wife over a deeply personal and contentious issue regarding our baby's surname. My wife and I had faced significant challenges in conceiving due to an accident I had when I was younger. After 3 long years, we were blessed with a beautiful daughter 3 weeks ago. However, our joy was overshadowed by a heated dispute over our baby's last name. My wife had been in a long-term relationship with her ex, who tragically committed suicide due to mental health issues after returning from service abroad. Her son from that previous relationship, who is nearly 12, has his father's surname, and my wife wishes for our new baby to carry the same surname as her ex. She continues to use her ex's surname herself, believing it's a better fit, and to ensure her son doesn't feel left out from his new sibling and any future siblings. I attempted to find a middle ground by suggesting that since I had been like a father to her son, the boy could take my surname, which would also allow her to adopt my name as well. She refused, insisting that her son's name has been part of his identity all his life and shouldn't change just to accommodate my preferences. I tried explaining that since their children have different fathers, it was natural for them to have different surnames. I even proposed that our daughter could carry her maiden name hyphenated with mine, while her son could retain his original surname hyphenated with his father's, ensuring both siblings would have similar names. Unfortunately, she dismissed this idea as well. With the deadline to register our baby's name approaching next Thursday, I suggested that we seek couples therapy to address our disagreements, at least temporarily using my surname for the registration process. She turned down this proposal too, stating that she had already gone through the emotional effort of carrying our daughter, and that the decision should solely be hers. I even consulted her son, who expressed that he was comfortable with having different surnames for his sister, understanding that his father was his biological parent, but recognizing me as his father figure. Despite these attempts at compromise, my wife accused me of emotionally manipulating her son, leading to a heated argument 5 days ago. We haven't spoken much since, and I didn't want our relationship to continue deteriorating over what should be joyous moments. 2 days ago, I reached my breaking point and told my wife that our baby must either carry my surname or I would file for divorce. I suggested that perhaps her deceased husband could still have a role in raising our daughter, given that she doesn't want to acknowledge me as her father. She called me a manipulator, arguing that it wasn't fair for her to be denied the right to choose our baby's first name and surname independently. Her suggestions for the first name were all feminine versions of her ex's name, such as Alexis, Alexia, and Alexandra for Alexander. If we had a boy, she wanted to keep his original name. Frustrated, I contacted a solicitor, which she overheard. She accused me of forcing her into a corner regarding the naming issue, despite my willingness to accept her choice of first name after eliminating those similar to her ex's, and my preference for using my middle name. Seeking external opinions, I wondered if I was making the right choice, feeling lost and questioning my life's direction. My wife, at 43, had been using her maiden name for most of her life, but had adopted her ex-husband's first and middle name to her son's official name when he was 7, and later changed her own name to match. Although she continued to raise her son, I had been unable to adopt him, which had already caused tension between us. Despite overcoming previous marital challenges without therapy, this name dispute had created an irreparable rift. Our relationship had become more like that of roommates, though we both desired a child. When we welcomed our daughter, the name selection became a battleground, leading to ongoing arguments. Quick update * responding to the advice I received, I contacted the registration office and learned that as long as we are married, only one parent needs to sign off on the baby's name. I tried to appeal to her better nature by involving both our parents and her sister in a mediation session. Through our group chat discussions, my parents and 3 siblings supported my stance, while her parents and siblings sided with her, believing that she should have the final say since she carried the baby. Her ex's parents even suggested naming our daughter with their surname, And surprisingly, they revealed that my wife had initially agreed to a name similar to her ex's for our daughter, causing her to blush when I confronted her about it. I then proposed naming our daughter after one of my exes, to which she retorted that I only had a few previous relationships, with names she found unattractive. As the discussions became heated, she slammed the bedroom door shut, locking me out. During the mediation with our parents, I approached her ex's parents to see if I could name our daughter after myself upon adopting her son, but they refused, asserting that their grandson was closer to his sister than I was to her as a father figure. They ridiculed my proposed first and middle names, as well as my surname choice for our daughter. This was particularly surprising since I had previously had a good relationship with them, having raised her son as my own. The next morning, my wife didn't come out of her room. I left her breakfast at the door, hoping it would help her calm down. However, as the day progressed, it became clear that reconciliation was impossible. A few of her friends called, questioning why I was so insistent on my surname for our child in the year 2023. I explained my perspective, but they still thought I was being unreasonable. On the Tuesday before our scheduled name appointment, my wife confronted me aggressively, insisting that she would proceed with her original plan to use a female variant of her ex's name. She went as far as stating that she would rather end her life than let our daughter carry my surname. Overwhelmed and ashamed, I called the police, reporting her threats of suicide. They arrived and took her in, despite her protests, as I felt it was unsafe for her to be around our baby at that moment. Determined to resolve the issue, I proceeded to register our daughter's name without her participation. Our daughter now has the first, middle, and surname chosen by me. My wife instructed her ex's parents to take care of her son, and my daughter through her sister until she could return. However, when her ex's parents attempted to take the baby, I refused and told them to leave, despite their threats of involving the police. My wife's parents visited over the weekend, insisting that I take the baby with me, but I declined, citing a visit from a health visitor and midwife who advised that social services might get involved due to her mental state. They have remained at her parents' home since then, even attempting to take the baby twice, but I changed the locks to prevent them from doing so. Although she has continued to provide express milk for our daughter through her sister, I have kept the baby with me, ensuring her safety and well-being. I have contacted a solicitor to finalize the divorce and secure custody of our baby, as social services have deemed me the better option for care given my wife's current mental state. There is no hope for saving our marriage, and I suspect she never truly loved me. Despite everything, I still care deeply for her son and hold on to the hope that one day, when he's old enough, he might seek me out. However, my solicitor cautioned me not to expect this to happen soon. My older brother and his wife are currently staying with me to help care for our daughter. Their experience with raising children has been invaluable, and I am grateful for their support during this tumultuous time. There is a profound sadness in knowing that our happy family has been dismantled by these unresolved issues. While I strive to maintain a stable and loving environment for our daughter, the memories of what once was continue to haunt me. Moving forward, I am focused on rebuilding my life and ensuring that our child grows up in a nurturing and supportive household, free from the conflicts that tore our family apart.